Hello and welcome. I'm Shikha Yadav reporting from the 6th edition of JLU International Festival of Media and Design organized by Faculty of Journalism and Creative Studies. I am having here eminent journalist Jyoti Malhotra with over 3 decades of experience in foreign affairs, politics, national affairs at some of the top publications in the country. Welcome, ma'am. It's an honor to have you here with us today.
Thank you, Shikha. Thank you so much.
So as a session was on how the phygital world is changing the idea of news. So can you give us a brief, what's the whole concept about in a nutshell?
So first of all, let's talk about this word phygital. So it's basically a new word. It's like an omnibus word, right? Which is physical and digital. So you sort of collapse these two words, and which makes it phygital. And I think we talked, first of all, I'd like to say that it's wonderful to be here in this university. It's such a beautiful campus, and the students full of interest, passion, lots of dreams. And the session that I had this morning was about people, communication, and trust. And how do you trust what's happening in the news, because there's the whole concept of news has changed. The news itself has changed. So how do you trust what you hear or what you read in whichever language, Hindi, English, whatever it is, or in any other language in our country? There are so many languages, as you know we have. So I think I have a very simple answer to that, a very simple formula, which is that even though the news is coming to you from thousands and hundreds of sources, no longer just newspapers or television, but you have social media, you have Facebook, Instagram, you also have what I call the WhatsApp University, which is completely unverified information that people are forwarding on WhatsApp. Nobody knows where it's coming from, what the sources are, who's put it out. And that goes against the grain of news, fundamentally. So how do you resolve that? How do you trust what your news is about? And the simple answer that I have is that you have to examine it. You have to ask where it's coming from. So the 5 commandments or the 5 rules or the 5 principles that every journalist should follow is who, what, where, when, and why. So who is speaking, what is going on, where is it happening, what it's all about, so who, what, where, when. So when is it? When is this event or this occasion or this thing taking place, and why? Why is very important. You have to figure out the motive of this. And then you have to ask the other side to have a fair assessment. So you don't necessarily always, you can go wrong very often. So, but if you try to get the gist of it, which is as close to the truth as possible, and so therefore you have to ask various kinds of people what the story is about. So that's
to cross-check, verify again and again.
Cross-check again and again, verify from different kinds of sources until you arrive at what you believe is the truth of the matter.
Completely agree. Being a national and strategic affairs editor, what's your opinion on the current state of India's foreign policy and its place in the world?
That's a very big question, because India's place in the world as we celebrate 75 years of independence, I think it's a journey. India has always been a very unique country. We have a unique civilization, and very ancient one, the Indus Valley civilization. But let me also say here that while India is the inheritor of such a civilization, there are other countries in the world that also have very old, they are very ancient nations. China, for example. China has a very ancient civilization. Egypt, So while we all believe that India is a very unique nation, we must also place India in the world. And today, India and China, as you know, we have a conflict. We don't, there's very little political or official communication, because your viewers may know, the students of this university will probably know that there is a conflict on the line of actual control in Ladakh, where Chinese troops are believed to be sitting on the line of actual control. Some people say they've even crossed over and have occupied Indian territory. That is not the official position of the government of India. But be that as it may, there is a problem with China. And yet, China is an ancient civilization. So India is an ancient civilization, China is an ancient... So how do you deal with this? And I think today the way the Indian government has been dealing with this very important question and with other questions, and you know that India is also the leader of the G20 this year, is to follow the national interest. And what does that mean? What does national interest mean? What that means is that you do what is best for your country. And you do it honestly, you do it with a lot of integrity. So on the China border conflict, you talk to the Chinese and you tell them to resolve it. They're not listening right now. So then you talk to the other countries. So you talk to the US, you talk to Russia, you talk to the European Union, and then you try and persuade these countries to listen to what you have to say. So they will then persuade the Chinese to back off. So it's a very interesting time for India's foreign policy. And yes, and as a journalist, it's wonderful to cover it.
Indeed, a crucial time for India. Ma'am, one last question. What's the best thing you liked the most about this fest?
Well, what I liked most about the festival was that a lot of young people who seem to be very interested in the work that they want to do. A lot of them want to become journalists. Some obviously like you, I'm sure you'd like to be a camera, an anchor or a presenter. That's what you want to do. But let me say one thing, which is that just being an anchor or a presenter is very important. But you should, I think, like somebody said in the morning, I think news is a very complex story. Putting a story out is very complex. So a presenter is at one end of the spectrum, and there's lots of people who work towards that. But coming back to what I liked most about your campus is I think that people want to become journalists. I think they should follow their dreams, their passions, their interests, and they should do it irrespective of... Absolutely, it's a passion that I've observed, and it's my own passion that I follow, which is that I've always wanted to be a journalist. And what I'd like to leave you with is that I think as a journalist, you must be curious about the world around you. I mean, I was looking at these semel trees outside your window. They're so beautiful. But perhaps you ask the question, why is the flower of this tree red? I mean, it's just one of those things. So, yeah, just to be curious and continue to be curious, and that's your journey of life.
Just to be curious and follow a passion. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing such informative insights, ma'am. It was a pleasure speaking to you. So this was Jyoti Malhotra throwing light upon concepts like phygital world, diplomatic relations, and much more. Keep watching Lakecity Live with camera person Uday, Shikha Yadav, Jain, Bhopal.